Perfect. Good morning. My name is Christy, and I'm one of the aviculturists here at the San Antonio Zoo. That means I work with the birds. Currently, we are over here at the Tiny Tots Nature Spot Flamingo Lagoon exhibit, where we have our greater flamingos as well as our North American ruddy ducks. Cute little duck with little blue bills. They're pretty fun. Behind me, over to the right, are our greater flamingos. They're the tallest birds in the flamingo family. And as you can see, they've got that lovely light pink coloration, those gorgeous darker pink legs. And they're a lot of fun. These guys, we've only got about 15 of them. They usually breed in flocks of 20 or more. They do pretty well here at the San Antonio Zoo. We've also got some American flamingos as well as Caribbean flamingos elsewhere, but these guys are pretty cool. They actually live in Africa and the Indian subcontinent, and they can be found in giant flocks, over 1,000 birds. They're pretty awesome seeing them flying overhead with their necks outspread and their legs trailing them behind them. They're doing pretty well in the wild right now. They're considered a species of least concern by the IUCN, which is a group that keeps an eye on species numbers in the wild. Also, over here you can also see some of a little family of mallards. Mallards are doing just fine. They like to come over here and eat some of the foods they find that we give to the flamingos and ruddy ducks. We've also got some other birds you've probably seen here at the San Antonio Zoo. They are black-bellied whistling ducks. They're also native, and they're doing pretty well. This little lady has a group of about 5 chicks. But I'm going to go back to the greater flamingos. A lot of people wonder, why are flamingos pink? That is due to their diet. They get beta-carotene from the algae and shrimps that they eat, which gives them that lovely, lovely pink color. When they hatch out, they're actually small and gray. They don't actually have that fantastic bill of theirs, which, as you can see, makes a really interesting angle. They use that to sift through the water just below the top layer of the waters for all the shrimps and algae that they eat. They can also dig it out of rock crevices. It's pretty neat watching them eat. But they get that coloration from the beta-carotene in their diet, which, as you know, causes, if you eat too many carrots, they'll actually turn you orange. It's the same pigment, but in these birds it turns pink. Now these guys, when they nest, they'll make a mound. It kind of looks like a small volcano of mud. That's pretty cool. They'll lay about 2 eggs at a time. They're a chalky white in coloration, and they'll sit on their eggs for up to about, I believe it's around 20 days. And then that chick hatches out, and they'll actually feed their chick a crop milk, which the mother and father, they ingest the food, and then they kind of give it back to the chick as a crop milk. It's pretty cool. Not many birds do that. Pigeons, obviously, flamingos do that. It's pretty neat to watch. It almost looks like the chick is connected to the mother's bill and can't get out, but they're just fine. Once baby's done feeding, mom goes out and goes looking for food, and probably dad comes up and feeds, and they only take care of their chicks. They don't pay attention to anyone else's chicks, which is pretty intense in a flock of over 1,000 nesting birds who everybody has a chick. Mom and dad know exactly who their chick is and where they are. These guys migrate actually from India down into Africa and back and forth, depending on the weather and time of year. Like I said, it's pretty neat watching that giant flock.
Flamingos typically weigh? They look like such large birds.
These guys, yeah, so these guys can be about 5 to 8 pounds depending on the gender. Ladies are usually smaller. You can kind of see them in the flock. They're shorter than the taller males. And they can be about 5.5 pounds. The males can be about 8 to 8.5 pounds. And they're pretty tall. They can get to about 4 to 5 feet high. And for a flamingo, that's pretty impressive. See, what am I missing? These guys also have those cool webbed feet, so they'll actually swim out into deeper waters looking for other algae blooms and shrimp and mollusk beds, and they'll eat those up. It's kind of funny to watch them swim because it doesn't look like they should be swimming that way. You can kind of see some of these guys, their legs are trembling. It doesn't really mean too much. It's a little bit cooler out today. We're also kind of standing and staring at them as I'm talking about them, and that makes them a little bit nervous, but they're doing okay. They can actually distinguish each other based on their individual voices, their grunts and those calls they make. And they're just keeping a steady eye out. A lot of native birds to Africa can eat flamingos. One of the more famous ones is the marabou stork. It's a big stork with maybe a 3-foot long bill. They're pretty awesome to check out, the marabou stork, and they're pretty famous for eating flamingos. Also, what can pick off baby flamingos are, of course, pretty much any ground-dwelling predator species. Jackals and cats, dogs, feral cats and dogs will go into a colony and eat up all kinds of chicks and eggs. Gulls and terns, who are native to the area, will also find discarded eggs and take care of those. They can be predated upon by other birds, eagles and hawks when they're smaller. But once they get to be about this big, they don't have too many predators. They can fly really well as long as they've got a good long running start, and then they're up in the air and gone.
Christy, we've got a great question from Paul, which is actually a 2-part question.
Awesome.
Paul is asking, what are those bands above their knees?
Oh, very good question. Those are leg bands, and they have different meanings. So if you can see that this little lady who's kind of standing in the water just to the left of the island, she's got a metal band on as well as that color band, and the color band has a number. It says 05 white in green lettering. And so we can identify them from a distance by the color of the band as well as that number. So if we see that a bird isn't doing too well, maybe they've got a limp, maybe they're bleeding somewhere, maybe they just look a little lethargic, we can say, okay, 05 white band with green numbers, looks like she's not doing too well. Let me pull up her information and find out if she's been doing this for a few days. If she has been, we can pick her up, and then we can look at that middle band, which is a more permanent band. And that has an individualized number of maybe 5 to 6 digits, which we can pull up on the computer and be like, okay, this is this bird born in, let's say, 2010, pretty young bird, so she shouldn't really be acting like this. Let's pick her up and see if anything's going on. So we'll go in, pick her up, take her to the health center, and they'll figure out what's going on.
And then can you explain, is that their knee that we're looking at?
That is not their knee. Actually, their knee is up in the body of the bird. We can't see it. It's underneath all that feathers and the wings. The that part that goes backwards is actually their ankle, and on bird that is known as the hock, H-O-C-K. And they'll actually sit on those, kind of like we just sort of lean back on our ankles to take the weight off. But they're actually standing on their very tippy toes, which have over the millennia grown into that leg known as the tarsus. There's tarsus and tibia tarsus, and I couldn't exactly tell you exactly which one it is.
Liz would like to know if these flamingos' feather color change throughout the year.
They do not. Sometimes they will get less vibrant or more vibrant. But for the most part, the flamingos will stay the same color. Now, depending on the wear and tear of the feather, they can grow duller, and that's when they molt. Birds go through a molt at least once a year, if not 2 to 3 times, depending on the species, age, and demographic of where that bird lives. And so any feathers you see on the ground were probably just dropped off, and then they grow right back in a couple days, depending on the species, of course. Smaller songbirds who need to fly at quicker paces will grow out their feathers much more quickly than, say, a larger bird who can kind of defend themselves. So they can spend more time on those big feathers. That's a very good question.
Jennifer would like to know how long they live.
These guys, they can live a very long time. Apparently, I did some research, and they can live up to 70 years in captivity. Usually in the wild, you can say, okay, this bird lives about 60 years in captivity. You can usually have that. So these guys live about 20 to 30 years in the wild, simply due to stressors and the fact that they're not getting the medical care that they need to live so long.
And for people just joining us, can you tell everyone again what type of flamingo we're looking at?
Absolutely. These are the greater flamingos, which live in Africa and the Asian subcontinent, as well as southern Europe, which I forgot to mention earlier.
So different species of flamingo are different shades of color pink, correct?
Yes, indeed. So Caribbean flamingos, also known as the American flamingo, is going to be a much darker pink overall. They're also very tall, and they've got a basic color pattern overall. You can see that there's definite delineation in these guys. They've got those darker pink wings and black primary feathers, as well as the light pink body feathers. Caribbean flamingos are a little bit darker. The Chilean flamingos are lighter in color, similar to these guys, but more pink throughout. And they have much darker pink knees. So they've got light legs, and I'm sorry, not knees, hocks. They got darker pink hocks.
Grace has a question. She says, the flamingo legs look so thin. Are they strong?
They're surprisingly strong. They're also delicate, but for what the birds do, it can take quite a bit of a shock, which is basically what those legs are for. They're for swimming and shock absorption when they touch down. And so while some, if they're hit on the right angle, they are delicate. They can be broken pretty easily, but for what these birds need them for, they're pretty strong.
I have a question. We got to go back and show some of these baby mallards that are over here.
Absolutely.
And if we can go over for our viewers, not only that these babies are so cute, but maybe what they should and shouldn't do if they happen to see ducks around their own neighborhood or out in the environment.
Absolutely. That's always a really good point to make. They've seen us come and they're a little bit nervous, but they were just snuggled up sleeping while Mom goes and takes a break over on the opposite bank. There they go. They've settled down. So anytime y'all are out in a park or anywhere really, and you see ducks and you say, oh man, these guys are so freaking cute, which they are. They're so fuzzy. One thing you should never feed them, and a lot of people do feed them, is bread. You shouldn't feed them bread. It's got the wrong kinds of proteins for them. There go the graders. They've got the wrong kinds of proteins for any animal, really. And with ducks, it can actually be pretty detrimental. What happens is that when ducks are fed too much bread, they'll get what is a condition known as angel wing, which causes their feathers to grow straight out from their body. Detrimental because they can't fly nearly as well, and so are far more susceptible to by any sort of or feral. So anything, if some stuff you can feed them. If you've got any leftover produce at home, you can cut that down into small pieces and feed them any sort of fruits and veggies that you have. They love grapes, so if you've got grapes that are going bad and you don't just want to throw them away, toss them in the freezer. You can pull them out later and cut them in half or into quarters or even eighths if you're feeding really small ducks like the ducklings here. And you can throw that out to them. The grapes will float and the ducks love just gobbling them right up. Lettuce, any sort of leafy green, they absolutely love it. You can tear it apart into smaller pieces and toss it into the water. They love it. And it's so much better for them than human foods. All right, so I guess unless anyone has any other questions, I should say thank you so much for tuning in. And if y'all want to help out the zoo, we really appreciate it, especially right now. You can go online and click around. You can find some donation links, as well as any other links to help out our many ecological projects that we're helping out with, such as the Selva Project and stuff like that. But thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see y'all later. Have a wonderful day.